Good morning, my creative friends. Dr. Minette Riordan here. This is Painting in Your PJs with Minette, where we gather to work in our visual journals to talk about all things life, love, and art, and to really see how art is a dynamic expression of who we're being on the inside, how we can get to know ourselves better by bringing the inside to the outside on the page. And I thought I'd do just a quick flip through. This is an old journal. I love all these soul scribble paintings, and it's always fascinating to watch my own style sort of shift and evolve. This journal was actually started in 2021 and then got tucked away somewhere. And it's fun to pull it back out and to see what was going on at the time. But so much of this was about just expressive and spontaneous arts. This was simply playing with some acrylic ink on the page and seeing what evolved. I have a definite love of dragons, right? And so many things that sort of pique my curiosity, a little bit of drawing practice, and my lights are being a little bit glary this morning, and I'm not sure what's going on. So there we go. That's a little better. Good morning, Mary. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So just doing a quick flip through of some of the playfulness. Like this was a period that I was in when I was doing all these soul scribbles a while back. Some are dated, some are not, right? But then I could see where I transitioned back to my love of visual journaling and lots of color and painting. Some of the things I've been working on. These are a couple of videos from earlier this week. This was from a lesson that I taught for someone else's class. This was yesterday's video. Really loved how this one turned out. But I was thinking today that what I wanted to focus on was really being in the energy of expressive and spontaneous art. And what I mean by that, and I'm kind of wanting to see if I can just lower my camera a little bit closer here. Bear with me. I'm getting my technology all set up this morning. But what I wanted to really think about this morning was how do I work with what I'm feeling or seeing in my imagination and bringing that forward onto the page? How do I connect through spontaneous imagination to feelings and emotions? And a lot of times I do that by simply putting color on the page or working with a image that I love. And so one of the images that I love and that I paint a lot is a tree and trees in all forms. So I thought I would start on the page this morning with my favorite Stabilo Marks All pencil and then just intuitively thinking about some colors. And I just want to, good morning, Judy. I just want to play with color and form this morning. And sometimes we can get so caught up in what we think a tree is supposed to look like. And what I want you to really think about connecting to on the page this morning is, what does a tree feel like? And I think I'm feeling drawn to trees this morning because there's been just sort of a longing for green. And apparently, March in Colorado is a month that we get the most snow, the highest amount of snowfall. And so I'm going to just come in here and spontaneously draw, what does a tree feel like this morning, right? What does a tree feel like this morning? And what is it that I'm needing from the energy of a tree? And I think part of what I'm feeling this morning, I was doing some journaling before class, is I'm in a creative process right now of birthing a new program for therapists and coaches. I'm also in the process of filling my retreat in May and dreaming about what that's going to look like, how what's the flow going to be like, who are the final people. I only have 2 spots left that are going to choose to come and play. And so there's this sense of swirliness happening inside of me this morning that feels a little chaotic, like I'm in the messy middle of a piece and I'm seeking some clarity and direction. And when I think about trees, trees are both deeply, deeply rooted, right? They're deeply rooted into the earth's surface. Think about a mighty oak tree, but they're also reaching for the light. And this is kind of the state, that I want to live in, where I always feel sort of calm and grounded, but I'm also reaching for that clarity and that light, opening myself up to what's possible. And so I love using expressive and spontaneous art this way to sort of just capture where I am in the moment. And I should have brought my other journal. I played with my oil pastels and I just drew in my journal some of the self doubt and I'm feeling about that program, also some of that chaos of being in the messy middle. So I'm using Map Medium here to activate that Stabilo marks all on the page and then also to seal it so I can come in over the top with color. But I love the way that the color activates on the page. And I drew a crazy page that was all red and yellow of just feeling like in my head, just like in a painting, we usually hit a place in a painting that is often called that messy middle, right? We've got our background layer, we maybe have a middle layer, and then something happens where we just get kind of stuck and we don't know where to go next. And that's kind of how I'm feeling around this particular project this morning, is a little bit stuck and I don't know where to go next. So I want to just sort of draw my way through that this morning and paint my way through it. I could have started with color, but it felt important to just draw some of those lines, get them out and flowing onto the page. And I'm just using a catalyst wedge, one of my favorite tools, to sort of move that map medium around. I'm going to get this page really dry, and then I'm going to come in with paint and start adding some colors, just kind of working again very intuitively. So I've been sort of leaning into green and purple this week. So maybe some green and purple and blue, some of those cool colors are what I'm feeling drawn to. I notice that I tend to go through stages with my palettes. I have a few different sizes of brushes here because as I start to really make these marks and put color on the page, I'm going to want to be able to have some different types of flow and energy to the page. So I'm going to work with that. And I'm going to come in. Here's a medium violet from my lovely Nova Colors. I've been having fun with this Jelly Arts Fresh Water. This is an older paint. So I've got a blue and a purple. They're very cool colors. And it's interesting because sometimes greens can sort of be on the line between the cool and the warm. They sort of fall into the cool. And I'm wondering if I want something a little bit deeper or maybe even something a lot brighter, this beautiful yellow green. So that one is definitely like maybe both of these. So just grabbing the colors that feel like how I'm feeling on the inside, right? Grabbing the colors that feel how I'm feeling on the inside. And then I'm just going to start putting color on the page. If you've been watching me for a while, you know that I tend to work very intuitively in this way. And sometimes I just let the story unfold. But this morning I knew that the story was already there, but the story, I needed to work through the emotions of self doubt. Will this program work? Will people want it? Through that messy middle of, I don't quite know what it is yet, and some of that frustration of feeling like I can't see it. And when I can't see it, then, I can't talk about it or start to share it with others. And so, what I'm seeking is both the groundedness and rootedness of the tree, as well as that reaching towards the light, the growing, the unfurling. And this is a tree of my imagination. So, I'm digging deep into what does that tree feel like? So, it's tree like. I don't feel any need to create this sort of, realistic tree. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in what things are supposed to look like. And I'm going to have some fun just cleaning off my brush on this page. Helps to move that energy even more and also to not waste any of that paint, but start to build up this other page. And these kind of expressive arts activities are things I often use with clients. And with my private coaching clients, I love working one on one with people in my Emerge program, which is all about finding meaning, purpose, and fulfillment in our lives at times when we're really feeling like we've lost sight of who we are. Like what I hear from my clients over and over again is, I don't know who I am anymore. And I have been there so many times in my life where I'm like, what is the path that I'm on? What I'm doing is no longer serving me. So I'm just allowing the colors to flow onto the page. Again, I have no direction that I'm going. Sort of bring back some of these circles. And in my Emerge program, I take people through a 4-month process of really going deep within to sort of unearth and mine the stories that are holding them back, but also the stories that are wanting to rise to the surface, to be revealed, to give us glimpses and glimmers into our own future. And so oftentimes I will, and I do this both virtually and in person, is that I will just give people a canvas or invite them to grab a journal and to just paint what they're feeling, what the expression of that is. And the more that we can lean into this, actually, the better. Buenos dias, Blanca. So glad you're here, mi amiga. But the more we can just be with our emotions on the page, the easier often it is then to be with our emotions off the page. And if we can give visual expression to the things that we're feeling, visual expression to the things that we're feeling, we can identify them, we can name them. And when we can name them, then we can heal them, transform them, release them. So I'm really feeling a lot of energy moving through my body, right? So still sort of, kind of following those original lines that I drew, losing a little bit of that tree, feeling like the energy wants to just flow, that swirliness, that digging roots in, but also that just sense of reaching outward for the light and what wants to be expressed. I'm going to let all this color flow onto the page and then bring my tree back at the end. Allowing ourselves to play in this way also makes it easier to deal with our emotions, right? When we allow ourselves to play, we don't take ourselves so seriously. I, for one, can definitely take myself very seriously. I'm a definite overachiever and sometimes an overthinker. I'm sitting on ideas for a long time. I can get stuck in that self doubt, and I can find that I can paint my way through it and I can walk my way through it. I find that time spent in nature. I'm also a verbal processor. So when I can sit and work on my ideas and talk through them with someone on a walk, usually my husband gets to be on the receiving end. Interesting, it looks like there's some eyes appearing here, feeling that sort of circling energy, growth, expansion. And I find that oftentimes where we get stuck as artists is having a fixed image in our heads of what we want something to look like, and then getting frustrated when what we're creating on the page doesn't look like what we're seeing on in our heads. And that, we're taught to see things a certain way. For example, we all have probably a shared idea of what does a tree really look like. And yet in my spontaneous imagination, a tree can take on a whole new form if I allow it to. Really loving this bright lime green. It feels like it's letting the light in. And so having pages in your journal where you're really free to just play and explore is so important, right? Is so important. That bright limey green is making me happy. So definitely have been loving, again, just feeling that need for those spring colors, right? For those spring colors. So now I'm wanting to bring in some more color, feeling like maybe yellow wants to come forth a little bit more light on the page, maybe even some white. So I'm going to get this super dry before I add, if I added another color right now, so all these cool colors, they work together and they're mixed a little bit, but they're also separate. If I were to add a yellow on here now, I would just end up with some mud. So I'm going to get this nice and dry. And I'll put myself on mute so you don't have to listen to the dryer. And I'll be right back. All right, it's mostly dry. I love having a heat tool. This is a super old one that was designed for embossing, but you can buy small heat tools. Or even I use my hair dryer all the time for my, because I never blow dry my hair. But there's a lot of different tools that you can buy. It makes your process go faster and you don't get stuck waiting for paint to dry. And you also don't get mud, right? So, one of the reasons that we get mud, and this used to happen to me a lot more in my art, was because I wasn't patient for waiting things dry. And if you don't have a dryer, then what I would do would be to have several journals going at the same time so that as I put a layer, and I often do this when I'm working on a bigger canvas, is that, I'll paint a layer and then I'll go work on something else and let that layer dry. All right. So just still following the movement and the energy. I even have some giant canvases where I just have done these very energetic paintings of following the energy, right? Following the energy and allowing yourself to play on the page. So for me, this is a form of deep reflection. One of my 6 pillars of a radiant life is deep reflection. Another is deep connection. And by combining journal writing, loving how that white is really brightening up, and visual creative play, it can get to the truth of how I'm feeling. And I was sharing that I have this new program that I'm working on and that I'm having some self doubt about it. It's a different type of program for me, but it's a type of program I've been dreaming of creating literally for decades and waiting for it to have its time. And it feels like now is the time. And I think because I've held it so closely and tightly, excuse me, that I'm definitely feeling some resistance, definitely feeling some resistance. All right, I'm going to come back, just cleaning off my brush and come back in with some of these darks again. I'm loving where I've got some of these darks in there. And again, just giving myself permission to play, to be. How does my hand want to move? What kind of, notice how I'm making these very short dashed marks, right? It feels like it's allowing that energy to move across the page. So I'm bringing that form of that tree is coming back to the surface so I can see that it's tree-like, can feel the movement, that upward flow. Thinking I'm going to want to bring some black in here as well. And when I work on pages like this, I dry my brush really well, right? Or I will grab just a completely different brush and use a lot of brushes. When you're working with acrylics and layering this way, and I'm letting that paint like be really thick on the page as well, but when you're layering this way, you want to have a very dry brush. In fact, for any work I do with acrylics, dry brush allows me to get the opacity of the colors, the layers. So I'm layering some of this bright neon yellow over the white. If I paint it over some of the other areas, I won't see it as much. It'll disappear. Most neon colors are quite transparent, not particularly opaque. And so putting that layer of white under them will help them stand out. And I'm feeling like I want to bring in some orange, which feels a little crazy, and I'm trusting that little bit of crazy. So I'm noticing that I put my cool colors down and now my warm colors. So I started with the purples, blues, and greens all on the warm side, and now those warm colors are wanting to come in. So again, I'm going to hit this with the dryer so that I don't create mud on the page. All right. Let's see. I'm feeling I want a really bright, so this is just a cadmium orange. I'm going to come back in with that little small brush again, noticing how each brush makes different marks. This one's about empty, but just feeling like that orange, just almost like an explosion of blooms happening underneath the branches of the tree. So I'm starting to go a different direction with my paint, again, just trusting. And it's interesting if I think about, so here I was writing in my journal about, what do I need to move through self-doubt and back into this reaching for the light and the clarity. And so much of it is about allowing the story to unfold. And for me, that is the nature of spontaneous and expressive arts, where I'm allowing the story to unfold on the page. I'm not driving the story. I'm connected to my intuition. And if I allow that to happen in the birth of this new program, things will go better, right? It's when I try to force it or push it or make things happen too fast before their time that I create stress and anxiety. That I create stress and anxiety. All right, so the page again is starting to feel maybe just a little dark. So maybe I'm going to come back in with a little bit of my bright blue here again. And I can play for hours just building up the layers. And when I think about the creative work I do in my Emerge program with my private clients, this is how we uncover meaning. This is where we find the stories that are waiting to be told. This is where we reconnect to what is already within, is just through play, through exploration. And as humans, one of our greatest needs is to feel valued, to feel needed, to feel like we're making a contribution, to feel like our life has meaning. And we can find that on the page. We often can't think our way through that like we try to think our way through so many other things, but we can feel our way through it. We can express our way through it. And I'm feeling like that tree wants some black so that it has a little bit of form here. And again, just noticing the call to the lights and the darks, that there's a combination of both, right? That the dark colors really represent the groundedness and the roots, and those brighter colors. Good morning, Yvonne. And those brighter colors really represent light and growth and allowing what's new to come in. So if you're just joining me, I'm doing an expressive and spontaneous painting, more or less of a tree, the imaginative shape of a tree that is both rooted and reaching, growing towards the light. The other thing that's so cool about trees is how they communicate with each other, the interconnectedness of trees through their root systems. And I was sharing that I was feeling some self-doubt around a new program I'm working on, and a little bit of, chaos and confusion, and wanting a little bit more clarity. And I realized that I'm just in the murky middle of my own creative process, and that I need to be patient with myself, but that I can get caught up in the ideation of everything and forget to stay grounded and rooted. And it's when I am grounded and rooted that I can calmly reach for that light, for that creative ideation. And I think I was also writing about, why is this program so important to me? Because the more important something is to us, often the more that our self doubt and resistance to something can come into play. And it's because it feels like it's a program that can really have a big impact on my mission, which is to help everyone on the planet really see and acknowledge their creativity, because I believe that when we're all working in our highest creative genius, we can solve all the world's problems. This is so important to me, but I can't do that by myself. And so this program that's going to be a training program for therapists and coaches and how to bring these type of creative activities into their work feels big, right? And because it feels big, it feels tender. It feels tender to share it out publicly, which I haven't really done. So different brush, different marks, loving how the black is really starting to pull the whole piece together. And these pages don't have to take a long time. Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you. And I do this with oil pastels. I do it with soft chalk pastels, just in my morning pages, sketchbook, and journal. I do it with sometimes just a pen on paper, letting my hand draw out what it is that I'm feeling to move the energy on the page. It doesn't always have form and shape, but somehow it felt like the tree was such a powerful symbol for the truth of how I'm feeling this morning. And this actually feels really finished. Actually, I want to get it dry. I want to put a few more pops of that gorgeous yellow green on the page, and then it's complete. Like sometimes I feel like I could sit here and be in the energy of these for days, and then sometimes I need to just let them be. So let me get this dry one more time. So what I'm loving about this is that combination of lights and darks. It needed the black to bring the form back to the surface again. And now I want to come in with just a little bit more light with some of this bright green, and maybe even some little bit of leafy shapes on the page, that new growth. We've been enjoying some beautiful warm sunny days, and then it snowed again yesterday and is quite chilly this morning. It says it's 18 degrees outside. Brr. And so feeling that and seeing other pictures, people's pictures, someone shared pictures of daffodils coming up. We're so far away from any of that yet here. And it's fine. And I'm painting in my need for growth, expansion, for color, and love how these spontaneous paintings turn out like this, just feeling that joy of the movement and the color. And I can feel my whole body feels so much calmer now than it did when I started the process, right? I was feeling a little more wishy washy, a little less grounded. And so now I've just sort of brought that back into place again. And I could even continue on this page. but I'll probably come back and use this page for something else. So I always love just using the page in my journal to clean off my brush. And then I have something already ready to respond to the next time I'm sitting here playing. I'm kind of feeling like there needs to be a little me sitting under the tree, and I don't know if I want to draw that in or collage that in, but I'm going to let that idea sit for a while. And I'm going to call this complete, right? Like I'm going to call it complete. It doesn't need to take a long time to engage in these kind of expressive arts activities. And another thing to think about is doing a painting like this is a brilliant warm up, right? If you have a particular project that you want to work on, then this is a great way to just play with paint on the page. Blanca, I have been having so much fun looking at all the beautiful photos from a couple of my favorite photographers from our time in Santa Barbara, and seeing all the snow on the mountains. Like it's crazy. I always loved when there was snow and when we would drive from Santa Barbara to LA and there would be a little bit of snow, but having so much snow, crazy, crazy, crazy. And it's been cold and rainy for my friends in the Bay Area as well. You guys have been really having some crazy winter. And then I talked to a friend in San Antonio this week who said that, it was 89 this week. And so now she's worried about the heat of the summers, right? If it's already that warm. So just coming back, some thick finger paint in here. I love getting my fingers into my work, wanting to just highlight some of those swirls. All right, now I'm really complete. So I am going to call it done for today. This beautiful, expressive, and spontaneous tree painting that is helping me work through some of my self doubt, some of my sort of murky middle of creative ideas, to that reminder that what I need most is to make sure that I stay grounded and connected. And the more that I stay grounded, then the more those ideas can also reach for the light. Have a wonderful rest of your day, my friends. Today is Thursday, so I will be back next Monday. I might be here tomorrow. I might be here tomorrow. So my husband is trying to encourage me to do 5 days a week, but to do shorter sessions. But it takes as long as it takes to do a page. And I might sleep in tomorrow. Who knows? But I will for sure be back next week on Monday. We're going to continue on our journey through March of these kinds of expressive arts activities to help us bring our inside outside on the page. I'm Dr. Minette Riordan. This is Painting in Your PJs with Minette, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you so much to those of you who are joining live. Thank you also to those of you who are watching the replay. And if you would do me a favor and like this video, it really helps other people to see it. I saw another artist I admire asking people to do that, and I hadn't thought about it. But if you would just give a quick like to the video, it really helps me to grow my audience here on YouTube. So thank you. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll see you guys all soon.